My ex-wife asked me to pretend to be her boyfriend for one weekend, and I said yes before I even understood why. 2 years ago, Nora and I signed the divorce papers in a courthouse hallway and walked out as strangers. Both of us too broken to grieve the same loss out loud. I'm Owen Shaw, 34, a boatwright on the coast of Maine, and I'd made peace with the quiet, or I told myself I had. But then she showed up at my workshop, rain in her hair, and asked me to be her fake boyfriend at her little sister's wedding, because her family still thinks I'm the one who got away, and there's a new man they're pushing on her who checks every box but hers. I should have said no. Pretending to love the woman I never stopped loving is its own kind of cruelty. But I said yes. And then we got to the resort. The one that was fully booked. The one where back-together couples share a room. And the woman at the front desk smiled and said the words that changed the entire weekend. "We only need one room, right?" Nora squeezed my hand before I could answer. One bed. One weekend. One lie we'd have to sell to the people who knew us best. So why did my ex-wife really ask me out of everyone? Why was Preston, the man her mother adored, watching us like he already knew our secret? And what happens when the two people who once buried a child together are forced to share one room, one story, and one last chance to tell the truth? It was raining the day she came back into my life. I was sanding the hull of a lobster boat, the smell of cedar and salt thick in the air, when I heard the shop door creak. I didn't turn around right away. Nobody visits a boatwright at 5 o'clock on a Thursday unless something's wrong. Then I heard her voice. "You still hum when you work. You never knew you did that." I froze. My hands stopped moving. I'd know that voice in a crowd of 1,000 people. I turned, and there she was, Nora, standing in my doorway with rain dripping off her coat. Her dark hair stuck to her cheeks. Her eyes doing that thing they always did when she was scared but trying to look brave. 2 years. 2 years since I'd seen her face this close. "Nora," I said. Her name felt strange and familiar in my mouth at the same time, like a song you forgot you knew. She stepped inside, hugging herself. "I need to ask you something crazy, and I need you to not say no until I finish." I set down the sandpaper. My heart was already pounding, and I hated that it still knew how to do that for her. "Okay. My sister Hallie is getting married this weekend, at the Cranberry Point Resort." She took a breath. "The whole family's coming. Mom, my aunts, everyone." And I told them a lie. A big one. I waited. I told them you and I have been seeing each other again. Quietly. For a few months. The words hit me like cold water. "You told them what?" I panicked, Owen. Her voice cracked. "Mom's been pushing this man on me for a year. Preston. He's a surgeon, he's rich, he says all the right things, and she looks at him like he's the son she always wanted. She invited him to the wedding. My mother invited my date to my sister's wedding without asking me. She wiped her eyes fast, angry at her own tears. And I couldn't stand the thought of walking in alone while everyone whispered about poor Nora who let a good man go. So I said your name, because you're the only good man they ever believed in. I stared at her. The rain drummed on the tin roof. Somewhere outside, a gull cried. "You want me to pretend to be your boyfriend?" I said slowly. "In front of your whole family. For a weekend. Just 3 days." She stepped closer. "Owen, I know it's insane. I know what happened. But you're the only person on earth I could ask this. You know my family. They love you. And with you standing next to me, nobody looks at me like I'm broken." There it was. The truth under the truth. She didn't need a boyfriend. She needed a shield. And God help me, I understood, because I'd spent 2 years being the same kind of broken. I should have said no. Every reasonable part of me screamed it. We had buried a daughter together. A little girl named June who never took a single breath outside her mother. And the grief had turned us into strangers who couldn't stand to be in the same room. I threw myself into work until my hands bled. Nora went so quiet I thought I'd lost her before I actually did. Pretending to love her again would be like reopening a wound with my own 2 hands. But then I looked at her. Really looked. The woman who used to fall asleep on my shoulder during thunderstorms. The woman who once drove 4 hours just to bring me soup when I had the flu. The woman I never stopped loving. Not for one single day. Why me? I asked quietly. You could have hired an actor. A stranger. Somebody who doesn't come with all this. She was silent for a long moment. Then she said the thing that undid me. Because a stranger wouldn't know how I like my coffee. And they'd all see through it in 5 minutes. Her voice dropped to almost nothing. And because when I imagined getting through this weekend without falling apart, the only face I could see standing next to me was yours. The shop went so quiet I could hear my own heartbeat. I wiped the sawdust off my hands. I told myself I was doing it for her. I told myself it meant nothing, that I could survive 3 days of pretending and then go back to my quiet life like none of it happened. I was lying to myself. But I said yes anyway. One weekend, I told her. She let out a breath like she'd been holding it for 2 years. One weekend. Neither of us looked at each other for too long after that. Because we both knew. Some lies are just the truth waiting for a braver moment to be told. Before we go on, my ex-wife once told me I'd never hit 5,000 subscribers on this channel. So do me a favor and prove her wrong. Hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a story. Let's show her what we can do together. Now, back to the lake. Now, scene 2. The drive to Cranberry Point took 2 hours, and for the first 30 minutes, neither of us said a word. Nora sat in the passenger seat of my old truck, watching the coastline blur past. The fishing shacks, the piles of lobster traps, the ocean flashing silver between the pine trees. Autumn had set the whole world on fire. The maples were burning red and gold, and the air coming through the cracked window smelled like wood smoke and salt. She finally broke the silence. You still drive with both hands on the wheel like a driving instructor. I felt the corner of my mouth twitch. And you still put your feet on the dashboard like you own the place. She looked down and sure enough her boots were up. She laughed. A small, surprised laugh, like it escaped before she could stop it. And just like that, 2 years melted a little. We need a story, she said, sitting up. If we're doing this, we need to agree on the details. How long we've been back together. Who reached out first. What we tell them. You reached out, I said. Because it's true. You showed up at my shop. She went quiet for a second. Fine. I reached out. And you said yes because? I kept my eyes on the road. Because I never stopped missing you. The truck went silent again, but it was a different kind of silent this time. Heavier. She didn't answer that. She just turned and looked out the window, and I watched her reflection in the glass, and I saw her blink fast, the way she did when she didn't want anyone to know she was crying. We pulled into Cranberry Point Resort just as the sun was sinking. It sat right on the water. A big timber lodge wrapped in string lights, with the ocean crashing against the rocks below. It was beautiful. It was exactly the kind of place Nora and I used to dream about when we were young and broke and stupidly in love. Inside, the lobby smelled like cinnamon and pine. A fire crackled in a stone hearth the size of a doorway. And behind the front desk stood a cheerful young woman who took one look at us holding the reservation and smiled. Shaw party. You're here for the Hallie and Marcus wedding, yes. She tapped her computer. Let's see. Oh, wonderful. We have you two down together. She looked up, still smiling. We only need one room, right? I felt Nora's hand shoot out and grab mine. I opened my mouth. I don't know what I was going to say. But Nora squeezed my fingers so hard I felt my knuckles crack. And she said, in the sweetest voice I'd ever heard her use, 1 room. That's perfect. The woman handed us a single key card. I leaned down and whispered into Nora's ear as we walked toward the elevator. 1 room, Nora? 1. She whispered back through her frozen smile. The whole resort is booked for the wedding, and couples share rooms. If we ask for 2, my mother will know in 10 minutes. Just play along. The elevator doors opened. The room was worse than I imagined, and better. A big bed with a thick white quilt. A window that looked straight out over the black water. A fireplace already glowing. 1 chair in the corner. No couch. No cot. Nothing but that one enormous bed sitting in the middle of the room like a dare. I set the bags down and stared at it. I'll take the floor. You will not take the floor. Your back is 40 years old in a 34-year-old body. She dropped onto the edge of the bed and pulled off her boots. We're adults. We can share a bed for 2 nights without the world ending. I wasn't so sure, because the truth was, I could already feel it. The old gravity between us, pulling me in like the tide. 2 years apart, and my body still leaned toward hers like she was north on a compass. But we didn't get to sit with it, because a sharp knock came at the door, and then a voice I'd know anywhere, warm and loud and heartbreakingly happy. Nora? Owen? Are you two in there? Nora's face went white. That's my mom. She grabbed my hand, yanked me up, and hissed, "Showtime." She opened the door and there stood her mother, Diane. Smaller than I remembered, silver threading through her hair now, but with those same bright eyes that filled with tears the second she saw me. Owen. She pressed her hand to her chest like she was seeing a ghost. Oh, Owen, it really is you. When Nora said you two were back together, I didn't dare believe it. She reached up and cupped my face in both her hands. I prayed for this. Do you know that? Every single night, I prayed my girl would find her way back to you. And behind her mother's shoulder, standing in the hallway with a bottle of expensive wine and a smile that didn't reach his eyes, was a tall man in a crisp navy sweater. Preston. He looked at me. He looked at Nora's hand in mine. And that smile of his tightened just for a second, the way a man smiles when he's decided he's going to win. So, Preston said smoothly, stepping forward and extending his hand to me, you're the famous ex-husband. Nora's told us. Well, actually, she's told us almost nothing about you. I guess some things are private. I shook his hand. His grip was firm, testing. Mine was firmer. Owen Shaw, I said. Preston Vale. His eyes flicked to Nora, then back to me, cool and calculating. This should be an interesting weekend. And standing there in that hallway, with Diane crying happy tears and Preston sizing me up like an opponent, I felt Nora's hand trembling in mine. That's when I understood. This wasn't going to be 3 quiet days of pretending. This was going to be war. And somehow I was going to have to fight for a woman I'd already lost once. The wedding was the next evening, and the whole resort glowed like something out of a dream. String lights hung between the pines. White flowers lined the aisle. Hallie married her Marcus right there on the bluff, with the ocean roaring behind them, and when they kissed, the whole family cried. Including me, though I told myself it was the wind. Nora sat beside me the entire ceremony, her hand in mine, her thumb moving slow circles across my knuckles. And here's the thing nobody warns you about pretending. Somewhere along the way, I stopped acting. The way she leaned into my shoulder was real. The way I remembered to grab her a sweater when the wind picked up was real. 2 years of missing her came pouring back, and I didn't have the strength to hold the door shut anymore. But Preston was watching. He was always watching. At the reception, under a tent strung with 1,000 tiny lights, he made his move. He raised his wine glass and tapped it with a fork, and the room went quiet. I'd just like to say a few words, he said, smiling that smooth surgeon smile. To this beautiful family that's welcomed me so warmly this year. His eyes slid to Nora. And to second chances. Some of us believe people can truly start fresh. Leave the past where it belongs. Build something new, something whole with no broken pieces holding them back. The words were polished, polite, but everyone at the table felt the knife under them. He was talking about me, about us, about June. I felt Nora go rigid beside me. Diane laughed nervously. Preston, I just think, Preston continued, turning to Nora directly now, that a woman like you deserves someone who can give you a future without dragging you back into all that grief. You spent 2 years crawling out of that hole, Nora. Why climb back down into it? The table went silent. Somebody's fork clinked. The music from the dance floor felt suddenly very far away, and Nora stood up. Her chair scraped against the wooden floor. Her hands were shaking, but when she spoke, her voice didn't waver. You want to talk about the hole, Preston? She said. Fine, let's talk about it. 2 years ago, I lost my daughter. Her name was June. She had 10 perfect fingers and 10 perfect toes, and she never took a single breath, and I held her anyway. The whole tent had gone still. Diane pressed a napkin to her mouth. Even the wind seemed to hold. And the man sitting next to me, Nora's voice cracked, but she pushed through it. The man you keep calling my broken past. He's the only person on this earth who was in that room with me, who buried her with me, who knows exactly how heavy that grief is, because he carried the other half of it. She turned and looked at me, tears streaming down her face. You want to give me a future with no broken pieces? I don't want a future that pretends June didn't exist. I want a future with the one person who never forgot she did. Couldn't breathe, because she wasn't acting anymore either. Preston set down his glass, his face pale. He opened his mouth, but there was nothing left to say. He stood, buttoned his jacket, and walked out of that tent into the dark, and nobody stopped him. And Nora just stood there, shaking in front of her entire family, having said out loud the thing we'd both been too broken to say for 2 years. I stood up. I took her face in my hands, right there in front of everyone, and I wiped her tears with my thumbs. I lied to your family, I whispered. But I need to tell you something true. Owen, I never came back for a weekend, Nora. My voice broke. I've been coming back to you in my head every single day for 2 years. I sand the same boat over and over just so my hands have something to do besides reach for a phone to call you. I never stopped. Not for 1 day. Not for 1 hour. She was crying so hard she could barely stand. We broke because we grieved alone, I said. Because I thought if I gave you space it meant I loved you. But space isn't love, Nora. Staying is love. And I'm done leaving. She grabbed the front of my shirt with both fists. Then don't, she sobbed. Don't leave. I've been so scared, Owen. Scared that loving you again meant I had to feel all of it again. But feeling it with you is the only way it doesn't destroy me. And then she kissed me. Not for the family. Not for Preston. Not for the story. For us. The whole tent erupted. Diane was on her feet, sobbing and clapping. Hallie was cheering with mascara running down her face. And out over the black water, the wind finally settled. Like even the ocean had been waiting for this. That night, back in that room with the one bed, we didn't sleep on opposite sides. She curled into me the way she used to, her head on my chest, my arm wrapped around her. And for the first time in 2 years, the quiet in my life didn't feel empty. Felt full. I named a boat after her. I whispered into her hair. Last spring. Couldn't tell you. I named it the June. Nora went still. Then she lifted her head and looked at me, and through her tears, she smiled. A real one, soft and broken and beautiful. Take me to see it, she whispered. Take me to see our girls' boat. So I did. We didn't remarry right away. Some things you don't rush the second time. We learned how to grieve together instead of alone. We learned that love isn't the absence of pain. It's someone choosing to hold the pain with you. We visited June's grave together every Sunday, and we planted a garden that bloomed white every June. And slowly, gently, we built a life that had room for both our joy and our sorrow. A year later, I married her again on that same bluff, with the June anchored just offshore, rocking softly in the tide. Because here's what I learned, and what I'll never forget. The strongest love isn't the one that never breaks. It's the one that breaks, and finds its way back anyway. So let me ask you this before you go. If there's someone you loved and lost, not because you stopped loving them, but because the pain got too heavy to carry alone, what's really stopping you from reaching out? Is it pride? Fear? Or are you, like me, just waiting for a braver moment that may never come on its own? Tell me in the comments. Someone out there needs to read your story tonight. And if the story moved you even a little, remember what my ex-wife said. She swore I'd never reach 5,000 subscribers. Prove her wrong. Hit subscribe, ring that notification bell, and let's build something beautiful together. Because sometimes the bravest thing you'll ever do is stop running from the thing you never stopped loving.